Shoot, 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 shoot.
Hi guys, welcome. Just like to let that intro play a little longer. I was trying to talk over it in the earlier ones and you never quite heard me the whole way. But let me introduce myself, Ren City, host of Sports and Shorts of Sorts. Doing our thing where we recap the week of sports, break into a little short of my own, but let's jump to it like we do with every episode, starting with honoring the jersey numbers that coincide with the episode numbers. Being that this is episode 67 now, yeah, we're getting there. We're going to honor the people that rock that number. So, like many numbers in the 60s, we're going to start in the NFL. And let's start things off by jumping in the time machine to talk about Les Richter, the unique triple threat of linebacker, guard, and kicker. The University of Cal Berkeley played guard and linebacker, twice recognized as consensus All-American, is a valedictorian of his graduating class. However, after school, he'd serve in the Korean War for the U.S. Army for 2 years. And then he'd become the second overall pick by the New York Yanks in the 1952 draft. Except the Yanks folded before the season and the Dallas Texans assumed his rights. Dallas would then trade Richter to the Rams for 11 players, the second largest deal ever made for one player. And during his 9 years with the Rams, Richter did not miss one game, even though he dealt with plenty of injuries. But his numbers are crazy. He led the league 1 year in field goal attempts, yet he also intercepted 16 passes over his career, a true Swiss Army knife. Although his Rams struggled, he only did play in one championship game, losing in the 1955 big game to the Cleveland Browns, but still had good individual numbers. 8 consecutive Pro Bowls, named first team All-Pro 4 times, second team All-Pro 3 times. Richter would get inducted into the College and Pro Football Hall of Fames, and after his playing days, he went to auto racing, where he was the Riverside International Raceway manager from 1953 to 1983. He was even the senior vice president of operations for NASCAR. Les Richter would pass away in 2010 at the age of 79 from a brain aneurysm, but what a life. A legend on the football field as well in the pit lane. You may say to yourself, you may see him in a lot of photos wearing 48, because he did switch his number during his career, but he rocked that 67 when he started out, and he had a magical career, and glad we're shouting him out in this 67 shout-outs. The next one on our list is, you've guessed it, another offensive lineman. I'm talking about number 67, Bob Kuechenberg. He played for both the offensive and defensive line while going to Notre Dame, and he was part of the 1966 national champion Fighting Irish team. After his time in college, he was drafted in the 4th round of the 69 NFL draft by the Eagles, where he quit shortly after training camp to join the Chicago Owls in the Continental Football League. After one season with the Owls, he then signed with the Miami Dolphins and rejoined the NFL, where he was part of the first Dolphins team to qualify for the playoffs. The following season, he helped get the Dolphins to the Super Bowl VI, where they'd lose to the Cowboys. But the Dolphins and Kuechenberg kept improving, and he was a member of the Dolphins team that went undefeated the entire season, capped it off with Super Bowl VII, where they beat the Washington Redskins. Following season, the Dolphins would repeat as Super Bowl champions, even though they lost a few games in the regular season. They'd win Super Bowl VIII over the Minnesota Vikings. And over his time with the Dolphins, Kuechenberg would make 6 Pro Bowls, 2 first-team All-Pros, and 1 second-team All-Pro. He had come close on the Hall of Fame ballots numerous times, but never got the induction. He was honored by the Dolphins and put into their honor roll, and he was a beast on the line and known to be a little grumpy off the field, criticizing former plenty Dolphins, where at the time All-Pro Jason Taylor said, he just needs a hug and a hobby. And in 2013, President Barack Obama honored the 1972 unbeaten perfect season for the Dolphins by inviting him to the White House. But Bob Kuechenberg declined to attend for political reasons. He passed away in 2019 at the age of 71 from a heart attack, and he's one of at least 345 NFL players to be diagnosed with CTE after passing, the condition that is caused by repeated hits to the head. But he's got to be one of the best free agent signings in Miami Dolphins history, and he'll always be immortalized on that undefeated Dolphins team. Sticking with our 67s, another offensive lineman. I'm talking about longtime Buffalo Bill Reggie McKenzie, an absolute monster at the University of Michigan, where he wore 65 there, but the 2-time first-team All-Big Ten and consensus All-American it surprised me he dropped the second round of the 72 draft, but the Bills picked him up there. He'd rocked the 67. He would make one first-team All-Pro in '73, and he was frequently pulling and leading sweeps for running back O.J. Simpson. And his one All-Pro season, that was the same season where Juice went on the loose and ran for the first 2,000-yard season in NFL history. McKenzie played 11 of his 13 seasons with the Bills before wrapping up his career with the Seahawks. And in retirement, he was inducted to the College Football Hall of Fame for his play at Michigan. Another 67, another offensive lineman, and another McKenzie. This time I'm talking about Kareem McKenzie. He played college football with the Penn State Nittany Lions, twice earning second-team All-Big Ten, once first-team Big Ten. This led to the Jets drafting McKenzie in the third round of the 2001 draft. Become a great lead blocker right away and helped Curtis, my favorite, Martin, shout out to Chris Berman, run for 3 straight 1,000-yard seasons. And when he was a free agent, he wouldn't move far to join the New York Giants. Again, lead blocking to help Tiki Barber set a franchise record with the Giants. And he was also a member of 2 Super Bowl winning teams with the New York Giants. Super Bowl 42, where the Giants ruined the Patriots' chances as perfect unbeaten season. And again in Super Bowl 46, when the Giants beat the Patriots again. Not many people can say they are 2-0 against Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. We know Eli Manning gets all the credit too, but he had this guy blocking for him as well. And after that last Super Bowl winning season, the Giants wouldn't re-sign McKenzie, and he wouldn't sign anywhere else, leaving the game with a very successful career. We'll wrap up the NFL portion of the number 67 with another offensive lineman, Grady Alderman. Michigan-born Alderman played at the University of Detroit, which led to the Detroit Lions drafting him in the 10th round of the 1960 NFL draft. He was only there one season before going to the Vikings in the expansion draft. And what a pick for the Vikings. Alderman played 15 seasons with the club, winning an NFL championship with the team in '69. He also made 6 Pro Bowls and was named the first-team All-Pro and second-team All-Pro. And he was named one of the 50 greatest Vikings and named to the Minnesota Vikings 25th anniversary team. Leaving the gridiron for the hockey rink, the first 67 that comes to mind, Max Pacioretty, the American hockey player, played for the Sioux City Musketeers in the USHL one season, leading the Montreal Canadiens, selecting him 22nd overall in the 2007 NHL entry draft, where he would then go to the University of Michigan before joining the Canadiens, and he became the first player in Canadiens history to wear the 67. He'd spent time with the Montreal Canadiens and their AHL affiliate Hamilton Bulldogs before he really started coming into his own. Then he suffered a nasty injury after taking a hit from Boston Giants, Zdeno Chara, where he collided with the stanchion at the end of the bench, and he laid motionless on the ice for a while. He was stretchered off the ice, diagnosed with a fractured 4th cervical vertebra and grade 2 concussion. Kept him out for a while, but the following season he'd return in style. Career-high 33 goals, 32 assists, also winning the Bill Masterton Award, Memorial Trophy for perseverance, sportsmanship, and dedication to hockey. He signed a long-term deal with the Canadiens. He'd eventually become a captain of the team, but the team began to struggle and trade rumors emerged, and he'd get moved to the Las Vegas Golden Knights, where although he was successful while playing, including his lone All-Star appearance, he did deal with injuries. He'd get traded to the Carolina Hurricanes, but would suffer a terrible torn Achilles, and he'd be out for the season, well, almost the season. He'd have it in the off-season workout, so he'd return, and just playing 5 games with the team, he'd tear his Achilles again. Terrible luck, and after the conclusion of that contract, he'd sign to play with the Capitals, where last season he put up 23 points in 47 games. And he's a free agent right now, but there's talks that Max Pacioretty may be going to the Rangers. There's a few teams looking to bring a veteran into the locker room. Hopefully he holds up. Last season he did get some more games in, so that was good to see. The next 67, another hockey player. I'm talking about Czech-born Michael Frolik. He played hockey in his native Czechia before coming to North America and playing for the Rimouski Oceanic in the QMJHL. His play there led to the Florida Panthers selecting him 10th overall in the 2006 NHL draft. His rookie season in Florida was his best one, putting up a career-high 45 points. And after his time in Florida, he'd go to Chicago Blackhawks, where he was a key member of the 2013 Stanley Cup winning Blackhawks team that beat the Bruins in 7 games. And from there, he'd move on to the Winnipeg Jets and then the Calgary Flames, where he was pretty productive. Excuse me. He then moved to Buffalo, where he struggled, and then he wrapped up his NHL career with a brief stint with the Canadiens. But he's still playing professional hockey back in Czechia, and he also represented Czechia at the international level. It's weird still calling them Czechia because they were Czech Republic for so long, but I'm getting it. But he did win a bronze medal in the World Juniors, as well as 2 different bronze medals at the World Championships. And we're going to stick with hockey. Number 67, this guy's currently still playing in the NHL. Talking about Swedish winger Rickard Rakell. He played with the Plymouth Whalers in the OHL, and his great play led to the Ducks drafting him 30th overall in the 2011 NHL draft. He played a few more seasons in the OHL before getting the call up to the Ducks and made his debut at 19 years old, where Raquel was a standout in Anaheim and made it to the All-Star game in 2018, the only one of his career so far. He spent 9 seasons with the Ducks before leaving in free agency to join the Penguins. He's a great fit in Pittsburgh, but after a down year last season, he'll be looking to bounce back this year. He's also represented Sweden at the international level. He has a gold and silver medal at the World Junior level and also a gold medal from the World Championships. We'll wrap up the NHL portion with 67s, going to a current NHLer, Lawson Crouse. He played for the Kingston Frontenacs of the OHL, where that great play led the drafters drafting him 11th, or the Panthers drafted him 11th overall in the 2015 draft. He'd never get the call up to play for the Panthers and would be involved in the trade sending him to the Arizona Coyotes, where with Arizona he would make his NHL debut. The following season he struggled a bit out of the gates, having to bounce down in the AHL affiliate Tucson Roadrunners, but the next season Crouse bounced back and really looked like a good player for the Coyotes. But this upcoming season, as well as his other teammates, there'll be a little bit of a transition as the Arizona Coyotes become the Utah Hockey Club, part of their relocation and rebranding. But it'll be interesting to see how this transition goes. Right now, Crouse could become a legend of this new franchise. The Mount Bridges, Ontario native Lawson Crouse has also represented Canada at the international level, winning a gold medal with the World Junior team and just recently winning the 2023 World Championship gold medal with Canada. I think the 27-year-old's best years are ahead of him, making a name for himself in Utah, I imagine. So we head to baseball. First 67 from the Diamond, right-handed pitcher Seth Lugo, currently playing for the Kansas City Royals, where 34-year-olds have a really good season. As of now, they're recording this podcast. He's 10-2 on the season, and he's looking really good. He played college ball at the Centenary College of Louisiana, which led to the Mets drafting him in the 34th round, 1,032nd overall in the 2011 draft. Didn't know there was that many rounds going up there, but he'd missed the entire 2012 season due to spondylus. I'm not even going to say it, but this was a disease or an illness that required spinal fusion surgery, and this procedure kept him bedridden at his mother's home. And he'd have to rehab, returning from baseball, playing in the minor leagues. Where he'd finally make his major league debut 4 years after his spinal fusion surgery. And he was good with the Mets. He's part of a combined no-hitter in 2022 against the Phillies. And as a free agent, Lugo signed a 1-year deal to play with the Padres. After that lone season, Lugo signed a 3-year deal to join the Royals, where, as I've mentioned, he's having a really good start to the season so far. Hopefully he can keep it up here. We'll wrap up baseball with the number 67 on our list. A little younger pitcher, 26-year-old Cody Bolton, playing for the Seattle Mariners. He's a relief pitcher for them. He played college ball at the University of Michigan, which led to the Pirates drafting him in the 6th round of the 2017 draft. He signed with the Pirates and played in the minor leagues, and of course couldn't play during the canceled COVID-19 season in 2020. And the following season he'd come back but pick up an injury and have to miss the whole season. But he'd finally make his return, and as he bounced back up the minor leagues, he'd get his MLB debut with the Pirates. He'd struggle a bit, but he'd be involved in a trade with the Mariners, where he currently plays now. And I go to the NBA, where in the 60s there hasn't been a lot of numbers, but in 67, this guy put in a few seasons with that number. I'm talking about Taj Gibson. He wore the 22 in his most productive seasons with the Bulls and Thunder, but he's rocked the 67 everywhere else. And it seems as long as Tom Thibodeau is coaching in the NBA, Gibson's got a job. He's played for Tibbs in Chicago, Minnesota, and the Knicks. Gibson's also suited up for the Wizards, and he's currently an elder statesman on a young Detroit team. And Taj Gibson, he was an athletic force in his younger days at USC, earning 3rd team and 2nd team All Pac-10. He also won Pac-10 Defensive Player of the Year in school. His rookie season with the Bulls, he made NBA All-Rookie 1st team. And Taj Gibson isn't the player he once was, but his veteran leadership and ability to step up when called upon, it's crucial to any team in the league. I hope he sticks with the Pistons. Well, that's the Jersey mentions. Let's go to sports. Let's go to the week that just went down. NHL, wow, what a wild ending to this season. It looked like a sweep, I'm not going to lie. It was looking like the Oilers would be done, but they had won Game 4, forced Game 5, and that was the most That was the lightest game coming up after the last episode, and the Oilers were looking to extend it while the Panthers were looking to raise it on their own ice. And we saw some Connor McDavid, some McMagic as he dangled through the whole team, setting up Perry for a goal. This one, it was close. It was 4-3 down the stretch after Ekman Larson was in the slot and shot at home late, making it 4-3. Both goalies making big saves, but the Oilers would add an empty netter. Big night for McDavid, 2 goals, 2 assists. It was a real big night to extend it to a Game 6 back in Edmonton. And the Oilers were looking to try to keep this historic moment going. They get a perfect start when Fogle would score. Then Janmark would find Henrique would double the lead. The Panthers would look to get one back. And they'd cough it up, leading to a Zach Hyman breakaway, 3-0 game. It was wild. And then this one would end 5-1. Crazy atmosphere. And Edmonton did the improbable, down 3-0, forced the Game 7, tied at 3-3. Like I mentioned on other podcasts, this was first done and only done in the Stanley Cup Finals back in 1942 when the Toronto Maple Leafs came back from 3-0 to beat the Red Wings 4-3. So big moment, Game 7, the most famous, best words in sports, went down in Florida. And it was an early big moment when the Oilers went into the penalty box. Warren Fogle got a penalty just 2 minutes into the game. And it looked like the power play was coming to the end. And then Evan Rodriguez just kind of threw one at net. Carter Verhaeghe got a greasy deflection on it, beating Skinner, giving the Panthers a 1-0 lead before for the 5-minute mark. Verhaeghe scored the first goal of the series, and he scored the first goal of Game 7. As moments later, you'd see a crisp pass by Cody Ceci, putting it right on Matthias Janmark's stick. He made a nice move and beat Bobrovsky blocker side, tying the game at 1. Talk about an opening period of excitement. Just 7 minutes to go in the first. Bouchard had a shot, and he hit it off the post. It'd be tied going into the second. And just a few minutes into the second, Tkachuk would slip, and he'd slide into an Oiler, tripping him, giving Edmonton a power play, and they'd put on tons of pressure. The Panthers would kill it off. But there'd be a moment where it looked like Edmonton would score. The puck just sat in the crease, and Dmitry Kulikov cleared it as he dove into his own net. And that set up Reinhart going the other way, and he'd sneak his shot just under the arm of Skinner, giving the Panthers their second lead of the game, 2-1 with 4 minutes to go in the second. The Oilers were looking for an early equalizer in the third, but instead picked up a high sticking penalty for Bouchard. Oilers killed the penalty, and they were looking to crank it up. And around the halfway mark, they had another big chance. Again, the puck was sitting in the crease, but it was covered and blown dead. You could feel the tension in the game. And as time ran down, the puck went into the corner, and the Panthers basically laid on the puck. And the clock winded down. You could hear the crowd build as Florida held on to the 2-1 win, avoiding the reverse sweep, avoiding the terrible side of that history, winning the best of series 4-3, winning their first Stanley Cup in their 30-year franchise history. Great post-game interview with Florida head coach Paul Maurice, who won the first Stanley Cup of his career. You could see the emotion on him, giving great quotes, thanking his family, and how his dad's name will now be on the cup with his heroes. He also said he hopes he could see one of his former teams, the Winnipeg Jets, win the Stanley Cup. So you know what he meant to the Jets there, and he couldn't win there. So you're glad to see a guy like Maurice win a cup. Great talk there. I'd love to see it. And the Conn Smythe for best postseason player was awarded to Edmonton's Connor McDavid. He put up 42 points in this playoff run, the fourth most ever. Gretzky has the most with 47, Lemieux 44, Gretzky again at 43, and now McDavid. That's some elite company. But he also joined a small, unwanted list of players to win the Conn Smythe on a losing team. He's just the sixth player to do it. The others were mostly goaltenders. Roger Crozier in the 66 Red Wings, Glenn Hall in 1968 St. Louis Blues, Reggie Leach, the first non-goalie, he won it in 1976 on the losing Flyers team. Ron Hextall, 1987 Flyers. And most recently, Jean-Sébastien Giguère, the 2003 Anaheim Ducks, who lost. Those are great players, but that's not a list you really want to be on. Hopefully Connor McDavid can get another chance to get his name on the Stanley Cup. Because when he won the Conn Smythe, he didn't even come out to get it, you know. He's all about the team, not individual awards. So he did not want to come up there and grab an individual trophy. in a team game. But yeah, it sucks. Some real Jerry West vibes there. May he rest in peace, because he's the only NBA player to win it as a loser. But man, that's wild. And I shouldn't say as a loser. I mean, he was the best player. His team just happened not to win. There we go. It's a little better. Florida's captain Alexander Barkov became the first Finnish captain to raise the cup. He lifted it, skated it around it, which is one of the coolest scenes in sports. Still, is the handing of the trophy. And before he handed it off to Bobrovsky, who could some argue should have won the Conn Smythe. I mean, some of those games in the finals where he let in tons of goals kind of ruined it. And then you'd see him pass it off to 17-year vet Kyle Okposo. These are guys that have been in the league a long time without lifting a cup, finally getting to. And it's another tough break for Canadian teams as the streak of non-Canadian wins continue. Seventh time a Canadian team has made it to the finals and lost since the Canadiens last lifted it in 1993, and that's a wrap on the NHL playoffs. But there's a quick turnaround as the NHL awards will go down Thursday, June 27th, and we have some more hardware given out. Then the NHL draft commences soon after, Friday, June 28th at the Sphere in Las Vegas. The San Jose Sharks are on the clock with the first pick in the draft. And also a huge announcement in hockey regarding the Hockey Hall of Fame, where the class of 2024 was unveiled. Pavel Datsyuk, Jeremy Roenick, Shea Weber, Natalie Darwitz, Chrissy Wendell-Pohl, all going in as players. Colin Campbell, David Poyle made it in the building category. Congratulations to that list of Hall of Famers. Great talent there. Man, watching Datsyuk, I'm glad I got to watch him in his day. Jeremy Roenick, one of the cockiest players. Shea Weber would break it through the boards if he could with his slap shot. It's a really good group. I unfortunately don't know too much on Darwitz and Wendell-Pohl, but this is a good group going in. Congratulations on them. Other hockey news, the Canucks agreed to terms with 26-year-old defenseman Philip Hronek, 8-year, $58 million contract. The Flames traded goaltender Jakob Markstrom to the Devils. The Flames got back Kevin Bowell on a 2025 first-round pick. San Jose Sharks claimed Barclay Goodrow off the waivers from the New York Rangers. Capitals acquired Pierre-Luc Dubois from the Los Angeles Kings, while the Caps got goaltender Darcy Kemper back. Colorado Avalanche forward Andrew Cogliano announced his retirement. He played 1,294 career NHL games and was a member of the 2022 Stanley Cup winning team in Colorado. And news just before the Game 7 went down, that the Game 7 I mentioned earlier, a big trade for the Ottawa Senators. Looks like the Canada's capital has found their new goaltender, acquiring Linus Ullmark from the Boston Bruins for Mark Kastelich and goaltender Jonas Korpisalo and a first-round pick, 25th overall in this year's draft. And even more moves, Colorado signing Casey Mittelstadt to a 3-year, $17 million contract extension. Winnipeg Jets re-signing Dylan DeMello on a 4-year deal. My Flyers are getting some more talent next season as young phenom Matt V. Mitchkov terminated his SKA contract and intends to sign with the club next season. Pardon me. And Team Canada also announced Tampa Bay Lightning head coach John Cooper will be coaching Team Canada at the 2025 Four Nations Face-Off and the 2026 Winter Olympics in Italy. Speaking of Italy, we got to go to Europe here for the Euro Cup. There were still some first matches to be played of Group F, and they went down Tuesday morning with Turkey, last Tuesday, with Turkey taking on Georgia. The Turkish side would apply more pressure to start the match and get rewarded for it. Ball coming to Mulder outside the box, striking it beautifully, smashing the ball in the top corner. And just minutes later, it looked like Turkey doubled their lead, but VAR found it offside. And the game stayed that way until the 32nd minute, where Georgia's Mikitadze, who found the back of the net. You've heard me talk him up playing for Mets all year in the league. In the 65th minute, some Turkish pressure led to the ball coming to Real Madrid's Arda Güler, and he curled another beauty into the back of the net. Turkey just scores nice goals. The 19-year-old's wonderful shot gave Turkey the lead for the second time in the match, and they led 2-1 after 65 minutes. And in the dying moments of the game, Georgia had a dangerous free kick. It entered the box and didn't touch anyone, striking the post, and their next shot would get blocked, setting up a corner where they try to get an equalizer. Turkey would steal it and go on a breakaway where Georgia's keeper was out, and he's trying to look for the goal. He tried to get back, but Arturkoglu would run the length of the field, find the empty net, giving Turkey the 3-1 win. Great game. The final opening match that would take place in Group F with Cristiano Ronaldo and Portugal taking on Czechia. Teams would play to a scoreless first half despite Portugal owning 75% of the ball. The second half continued to stay the same with Portugal looking more likely to score. Footy's a weird sport that way. Czechia would show some hustling, getting a chance to cross. The ball would come to West Ham's Soufal, who laid off a pass to Lucas Pervod, curled a beauty in the back of the net, giving Czechia the surprising 1-0 lead after 62 minutes. But that lead didn't last long. Portugal kept up their constant attack, and on a cross, Nuno Mendes headed it towards the Czech keeper, who went to punch it away, but punched it into his own defender, Robin Hranic, who ricocheted off him into his own net, tying the game at 1 after 69 minutes. And things got worse for Czechia in stoppage time. Portugal would try a late cross, and defender Hranic, who accidentally scored the own goal earlier, went to clear it. But in his process of trying to clear it, he just basically stopped it, setting up Francisco Conceição, who easily tapped it in, giving Portugal the 2-1 lead in the 92nd minute. Huge win for Portugal. Tough break for Czechia as they figured to get something out of that game and ended up with nothing but a loss. And after those amazing opening matches, I alluded to them last week, and these ones I just mentioned, we got to see the second games go down. Each team had a challenge coming in, and Croatia and Albania was a big one. And just like they did against the Italians, Albania opened the scoring in this match. 11 minutes in, Lacey would get a glancing header to give Albania the 1-0 lead, and both teams had chances to score. Croatia looked more likely, and they get rewarded when Kramaric would find himself in space, and he'd find it back the net, tying the game at 1 after 74 minutes. And then not even 2 minutes later, they'd get their lead. Substitute Ante Budimir would get the ball, and as he looked across with pace, the ball pinball before striking Albanian midfielder Yasula, and the ball went into his own goal, giving Croatia the lead. They were down 1-0, and suddenly they were up 2-1. It looked like they had things wrapped up. But in stoppage time, Yasula made up for his own goal earlier by finding a spot in the box and finding the back of the net, tying the game up with basically the last kick of the match, becoming the first substitute in history of the Euros or the World Cup to come off the bench, score an own goal as well as a goal for yourself. A dramatic game where both teams were hungry for a win and ended up with a 2-2 draw, which really could hurt them, as we'll get to later, their chances of advancing. Group A played as well, where host Germany took on Hungary. Germany was coming off that big win over Scotland, while Hungary was just trying to make up for their loss to Switzerland. Hungary almost caught the Germans off guard with a chance to start the match, but Neuer made a huge save. That woke the Germans up a bit, and they dominated possession, and they'd opened the scoring in the 22nd minute. It looked like Hungary had taken control of the ball in their own box, but defender Willi Orban tripped over his own feet, leaving German captain Ilkay Gundogan the ball, and he found 21-year-old Jamal Musiala, who put Germany up 1-0. The second half, the captain would finish off some nice passing with another German goal. Maximin Mittelstadt would spot a wide-open Gundogan, and he'd slot one in the corner, doubling the German lead after 67 minutes. Hungary battled back, but this German side was too good, and they'd hold on for the 2-0 victory. The loss didn't do any favors for Hungary, sitting at 0-2 thus far. They needed Scotland to beat Switzerland, and they'd have to beat Scotland in their final match. So it was possible, but not looking good. And then that other Group A match, Scotland took on Switzerland, and it looked they were looking to avenge that German shellacking they took in the opening match. Switzerland was feeling good coming off that win over Hungary I mentioned. Switzerland would have an early corner kick. They tried to go short with it, and ended up turning into a Scottish counter-attack where Callum McGregor laid the ball off for Manchester United's Scott McTominay, who attempted a shot on net. Fabian Schär went to block the shot, but he just knocked it into his own net. I thought it'd be an own goal, but McTominay got credit. Massive for Scotland as they took their first lead of the tournament. It only lasted until the 26th minute, where a dreadful giveaway by Scotland's Anthony Ralston led to Xherdan Shaqiri doing what he does, and that's scoring absolute master goals from long range in big tournaments. He curled a wonderful shot just inside the post to tie the game at 1. He's the only European to score in each of the last 6 major tournaments, going all the way back to the 2014 World Cup. And he's the first MLS player to score at the Euros. He's playing with the Chicago Fire. There'd be no more goals from that point on, and Scotland and Switzerland would finish in a 1-1 draw. Slovenia hosted Serbia in an exciting game where both teams had chances to score, and both keepers played great. After a scoreless first half, Karsanic would start a counterattack, swing it to the outside, and he'd continue his run where he'd get it back at the back post and finish wonderfully. Only a second goal for his nation at the top level. Beautiful goal that brought even more excitement to an exciting match. And Slovenia led after 69 minutes, but Mitrovic almost equalized when he smashed a shot off the crossbar. One of his many missed opportunities for the big Serbian. They were running out of time, and you're wondering if they were going to score with all these missed chances. But a late corner led to Luka Jovic getting his head on the ball, finding the back of the net in the 95th minute, earning a 1-1 draw with literally the last touch of the match. England hosted Denmark in a rematch of last Euro's semifinals. Kyle Walker went out on a run, and his cross went past the Danish defender, deflecting him and coming into the path of Harry Kane, where he'd slotted away and put England up 1-0 after 18 minutes. But Denmark would equalize on a beauty. From a throw-in in their own end, Harry Kane would give it away, and Denmark's Morten Hjælmand he'd unleash one from long range, finding the inside of the post where it'd go in. 1-1 match after 34 minutes, and that's just how it would end. An uneventful second half as the game ended in a 1-1 draw. Italy took on Spain in a battle of titans, and after a scoreless first half, Nico Williams would go on. He'd make some moves before sending a tasty cross, where Italian keeper Gianluigi Donnarumma went to push it away, but pushed it right into defender Calafiore, and it ricocheted into his own net. The own goal put Spain up 1-0 after 55 minutes, and that's how it would end, as Spain already punched their ticket to the knockout stages. Slovakia took on Ukraine in Group E play, and early in the match, Slovakia was putting pressure on, and then after a switch, who was taking the throw, and it led to a crafty cross by Harrisland, who found Ivan Schranz at the back post, and his header put Slovakia up 1-0. The second half, Ukraine would spark a counterattack with Chelsea's Mudryk going on a run. He'd find Alexander Zinchenko, who would spot Mykola Sharapenko, who found the back of the net, tying the game at 1 after 54 minutes. And after some beautiful display with a wonderful first touch by Roman Yaremchuk, his first touch would beat Dubravka, and as the ball trickled past the line, putting Ukraine up 2-1 after a lovely build-up, and Ukraine would go on the win 2-1. Massive win for Ukraine. Poland took on Austria in Group D, and the Austrians got off to a wonderful start. Early pressure led to an Austrian cross, which found Gernot Trauner, opening the scoring just 9 minutes into the match. Poland would equalize in the 30th minute when a looping cross caused all kinds of chaos, and the ball came to Piatek, who found the back of the net, tying up at 1. Both teams had chances to score, but in the 66th minute, Austrian Christoph Baumgartner's shot from long range would find the back of the net, putting Austria up for the second time in the match. And as Poland were looking to equalize, Austria hit him with a counterattack. Marcel Sabitzer would go on a breakaway and then get taken down in the box by Polish keeper Szczesny. It would result in a yellow card for the keeper and a penalty for Austria, where former West Ham man Marko Arnautovic would step up and score from the spot, securing the 3-1 win for Austria. France would meet up with Netherlands in another clash of the Titans, and this game didn't have much to talk about. There was a moment in the second half when Xavi Simons thought he put the Dutch side ahead. However, after a lengthy look, VAR determined that Denzel Dumfries was in an offside position, impacting the vision of the French keeper. A tough call, but a call VAR made nonetheless, and that match would end in a scoreless draw. Excuse me. Some water there. Georgia faced off with Czechia. Chet's looking to have scored the opening goal, but VAR disallowed it. They found there was a handball on the build-up. Didn't look much, but it's the rules. Late in the second half, Georgia had a free kick in good position. As it came into the box, there looked to have been a handball. VAR confirmed that, giving Georgia a chance, where the guy I've talked about all year, George Mikatadze, would score from the spot. And despite not having many chances in the match, Georgia led 1-0 at halftime. Czechia kept their pressure up, looking for an equalizer. In the 59th minute, they get it. From a corner, the ball would come to Patrick Schick, and it would kind of ricochet off his chest into the net, tying it up in an unlikely way, and the game would end 1-1. Portugal took on Turkey in a highly anticipated game, and it'd be the Portuguese side opening the scoring. A low cross found its way to Man City's Bernardo Silva, who found the back of the net and gave Portugal the 1-0 lead after 21 minutes. Not even 7 minutes later, we'd see one of the most dreadful own goals, one of the worst of the tournament anyway. Turkish defender Sami Akaydin did not even look back before passing it to the keeper. The keeper was next to him, and Akaydin's back pass went right into the empty net, giving Portugal 2 goals in 7 minutes and a 2-0 lead. You could see the frustrations on the Turkish side, who didn't even play that bad, yet were down 2-0. The second half, Turkey were really pushing the score, leaving themselves open in the back. The ball came to Cristiano Ronaldo, who could have taken a shot, but he passed it off to a wide-open Bruno Fernandes, easily tapping in the 56-minute goal, putting Portugal up 3-0 and showing people CR7, he's not that selfish guy you think he is all the time. That was a very unselfish pass, setting Fernandes up for the clinching goal. Belgium took on Romania in the last of the second group games, and not even 80 seconds into this match, we'd see the first goal. Belgium were on the attack, where Romelu Lukaku would lay one off perfectly for Yuri Tillemans, and the Aston Villa midfielder smashed it in the back of the net, giving Belgium the early 1-0 lead. Lukaku looked to double the lead in the second half, but much like Lukaku's luck most of this tournament, VAR would disallow it due to offsides. Romania pushed for that equalizer, forcing Castells into some really big saves, and those saves proved to be massive because in the 80th minute, Castells would send a goal kick way down the field, and after a touch, it's found its way to a streaking Kevin De Bruyne, where KDB fired it past the keeper, making it a 2-0 game, and that's how it would end. Big result for Belgium, despite a great battle by Romania. And that led us into our last games, our final group matches. And in Group A, how did that end? It wrapped up with Germany taking on Switzerland, Scotland taking on Hungary. Germany started to apply pressure, and they thought they had a goal. Robert Andrich lined it up, scored from outside the box, beating Sommer on a bouncing shot. However, VAR got involved and found Musiala had fouled a Swiss defender on the initial clearance before the goal, so it was determined there was no goal, and that would prove costly as the Swiss would go on the attack, and it looked like a slow build-up, but it led to Dan Ndoye redirecting a low cross in the back of the net. The goal looked so close to being offsides, but Rudiger just played him on, and Switzerland led 1-0 after 28 minutes, and Ndoye almost doubled the lead seconds later, barely missing the net. Vargas thought he doubled the lead for Switzerland, but the flag would go up and disallow the goal. So close. Staying 1-0, where German substitute Niklas Füllkrug in the second half outjumped everyone, tying the game at 1 with his huge header, a 96-minute goal. I think they got to start Füllkrug over Havertz. Maybe Nagelsmann likes the idea of bringing him off the bench late to face tired bodies, but Niklas Füllkrug's the real deal. He's done it all year with Dortmund. I think he should be playing more, but that's who am I to say anything? With that win, Germany secured Group A, and Switzerland advanced in the second spot. Scoreless game between Scotland and Hungary was decided deep in the stoppage time on the 100th minute opening goal by Hungary. Tons of added time after a massive collision that took Hungary's Barnabas Varga out of the game. A Hungary cross in the box led the Scottish keeper Angus Gunn punching the ball, but in the process, he took out his own defender as well as Varga. With his elbow striking Varga, he dropped to the ground, and he did like the fencing response we've seen happen in UFC fighters. It looked bad. Players, medical staff surrounded him. Later say he was in stable condition following the incident. The BBC was getting harsh criticism because they were showing the violent replay, and it's tough, like last year it was when Christian Eriksen collapsed on the field and needed attention. It's scary stuff, It's tough. You got to inform the people, but you got to give respect to the player and their family and everyone involved. But this match continued, and just as Scotland were looking to win from a corner kick late in the match, Hungary would take possession, triggering a counterattack where Roland Salai spotted Kevin Sobuth, and he'd find the back of the net, scoring the 10th minute of added time. A big 1-0 result kept Hungary alive as a wild card in Euros, while Scotland again goes home early. In Group B, Spain had already punched their ticket to the knockout stages. They were taking on an Albanian team that was looking for some magic to advance out of the group. And after a few passes, suddenly Ferran Torres was open, taking a shot on goal, and his curling shot found the back of the net. Suddenly Spain was leading 1-0. And as per usual, they dominate possession 60-40 and cruise to a 1-0 victory, advancing to the knockout stages with a perfect 3-0 record. After a scoreless first half, Croatia always looked the team more to score. Both teams had chances at the half or made changes at the half, and those changes would impact the game. Italian substitute for Tezzi, he would strike the ball with his hands in the box. Initially it was missed, but VAR didn't miss it, awarding Croatia the penalty where Luka Modric looked to score, but Donnarumma made a huge save to keep it scoreless. But Croatia kept up the pressure, and Sušic's cross into the box would be met by Croatian substitute Budimir, causing Donnarumma to make another huge save. But Modric, oldest guy out there, but first to the ball, he smashed the rebound into the net. A little redemption goal, giving Croatia the 1-0 lead after 55 minutes. Late in the match, Italy was looking for their equalizer. Every Croatian fan was just hoping for that whistle. Then Ricardo Calafiore went on a long run and spotted substitute Zeg Kenny, who curled a beauty into the top corner, tying the game at 1 and basically ending Croatia's Euro Cup in one kick. The 98th minute equalizer was a heartbreaker for Croatians all over the world, but it was a big result for Italy as they finished second in Group B and advanced to the knockout stage. Croatia finished in third with 2 points, and they'll be missing out. Albania finished last in the group, but they played well in a very tough group, so credit to Albania. They can keep their heads held high. Group D, it broke down with Austria taking on the Netherlands in the final match. Austria was hoping for a win to leapfrog the Dutch in the group, and they got the perfect start. Alexander Prass fired a low cross into the box, where it was met by Netherlands frontman Daniel Malin, who blasted into his own net, giving Austria the early 1-0 lead. And much like the first half, we get an early goal in the second half. Austria would go on the attack, but get dispossessed by the Dutch, triggering a Netherlands counterattack where Cody Gakpo curled a beauty into the net, tying the game at 1 after 47 minutes. The game stayed at high pace, and Austria would go on the attack again. A looping cross was met by Romano Schmid, who found in the back of the net, putting Austria up for the second time in the match. They led 2-1 after 59 minutes. But in the 75th minute, a contested ball would find its way to Memphis Depay, who had a lot to do yet, but still found the back of the net, tying the game up at 2. VAR got involved to see if there was a foul, but they didn't say a foul, and the goals counted, keeping the game tied at 2. The score would not stay that way very long. We're not even 5 minutes later. A play started from a rollout from the Austrian keeper, where Marcel Sabitzer would go on a long run before passing it up. The ball would find its way back to Sabitzer, where he'd find the back of the net, where Austria would get their third lead of the game, and they led 3-2 after 85 minutes, and they'd go on to beat the Netherlands 3-2. Surprising win for Austria there. Poland was looking for their first points of the competition as they took on France, and after a scoreless first half, we'd get a goal finally. Dembele was going on a run for France and was taken down in the box by a Polish defender, Kiwior. The referee immediately pointed to the spot where masked superstar Kylian Mbappe would step up and score his first of the tournament, giving France the 1-0 lead after 56 minutes. Poland looked to equalize on the attack, where Swiderski was pulled down in the box by Upamecano, resulting in a Poland penalty. Robert Lewandowski would step up, and after hesitating, he took the penalty, which was stopped by Mike Maignan. However, they looked at it, and VAR confirmed that he did step off the line too early. Lewandowski would get a chance again, and this time he'd find the back of the net, and the game was tied after 79 minutes. France would turn up the pressure, but couldn't get another goal, and it would end in a 1-1 draw. Surprise finishes all over Group D. So surprisingly, Austria end up winning the group with their win over the Netherlands. France's draw with Poland was enough to secure that second spot. The Netherlands sit in third with 4 points, so that should be enough to get them through to the wild card, but to get through to the knockout stages as wild cards. Sorry. Group C wrapped up with England playing Slovenia. It was a snooze fest. England dominated the ball, but only mustered 4 shots. It was a draw, and England won the group, but it wasn't much. Denmark took on Serbia in their last group matches, and much like the game mentioned, this game didn't have a lot of action. Teams almost evenly kept the ball. Denmark had 3 shots on target to Serbia's 1. Not a thrilling match by any mean, and Group C kind of ended with a fizzle there. So, yeah, Group C, sorry. Both of the last matches ending in a scoreless draw. I mentioned England won the group. Denmark and Slovenia both finished on 3 points with the same goal difference, same amount of goals scored, same number of yellow cards. But Denmark was awarded the second spot because Slovenia assistant coach Novakovic picked up a yellow card. I don't know how that tiebreaker was determined that way. And I don't know what would happen if an assistant coach wasn't given a card. It went to another player. Craziness, but that's how that was decided. So Serbia finished bottom of the group with 2 points and were eliminated from the tournament. Group E and Group F will be playing today. They're probably going on soon after this podcast is on the air. And Group E is the wildest of the bunch. All 4 of those teams are tied on 3 points right now. This group could literally go in any direction. Slovakia takes on Romania. Ukraine takes on Belgium. Both should be big matches with lots of excitement with, like I said, anything can happen. I have Slovakia beating Romania and Belgium beating Ukraine, but either of those teams could still qualify for the knockout stages as a wild card. Portugal has already punched their ticket to the knockout stages, and they'll be facing off with Georgia, who are hoping for a win to keep their very slim chances alive. Turkey face off with Czechia, which should be a good matchup. Before the tournament, I had Georgia sneaking in out of this group, but I can't see them beating Portugal. And I think Turkey will be the runner-up in the group. However, if Czechia can beat Turkey, they would leapfrog Turkey into the second spot and avoid elimination. So big games today to wrap up the group plays. And after those group games conclude, the round of 16 will commence Saturday, June 29th. We already know who will be playing that day. Switzerland will face off with Italy, and Germany will take on Denmark. Those should be exciting games, and the rest of the fixtures will be decided after the games wrap up today. Can't wait for the knockout stages. Quick transfer news: Michael Olise is leaving Premier League side Crystal Palace to join Bundesliga side Bayern Munich. Big move for the Frenchman. Another big signing in the Serie A, newly promoted Como agreeing to a deal with Roma to sign Bellotti. Gotta like that signing. And manager signing with Leicester City getting promoted to the Premier League and their coach leaving. Former Nottingham Forest boss Steve Cooper will be taking over Leicester City. Good for him. And this will bring us to another footy tournament from the biggest one of the biggest ones in the Eastern Hemisphere to the biggest one in the Western Hemisphere. I'm talking about the Copa America. There's been some dandies so far. Lots of hype surrounding Canada as they took on World Cup holders Argentina. Canada battled with one of the best teams in the world. Going into halftime, it was 0-0. Quickly into the second half, though, Julian Alvarez found the back of the net, putting Argentina up 1-0. If it wasn't for Canadian keeper Maxime Crepeau, this game could have been out of control. He was making big saves, fantastic shot stopper. But in the 88th minute, Inter Milan's Lautaro Martinez would add another. Argentina would seal the 2-0 win. Canada was outplayed, but you got to give it up to them for fighting back. And again, shout out to keeper Maxime Crepeau. He looked amazing. What a shot stopper. The other Group A match was between Peru and Chile. Chile dominated possession and shot attempts, but could not find the back of the net. Feisty physical match that resulted in a 0-0 draw. In Group B play, Ecuador took on Venezuela, and Venezuela started the game off pretty well, forcing Ecuador's Ener Valencia into a harsh challenge where VAR intervened and upgraded Valencia's car to a red one, dismissing him from the game, and that increased the chances for both teams. And then from a set piece, Jeremy Sarmiento would find space in the box, and he'd get the pass, and then he'd find the back of the net, putting 10-man Ecuador up 1-0 after 40 minutes. And then Venezuela made some changes to start the second half, and those changes really paid off. In the 64th minute, substitute Cadiz would find the back of the net, tying the game at 1. And then not even 10 minutes later, fellow substitute Edward Bello would find the back of the net, putting Venezuela up as they got the surprise comeback victory 2-1. Other Group B match was Mexico and Jamaica. Mexico had a ton of the possession in this game, and it was an exciting one. But unfortunately for Mexico and for my West Ham, Mexican captain Edson Alvarez picked up a hamstring injury. Had to be substituted out of the game just 30 minutes in. A tough blow for the team, and there's already talks Alvarez will miss the whole tournament. You hate to see that. The game went on, though, and early in the second half, it looked like Jamaica would get the lead. In the 50th minute, another West Ham player, striker Michael Antonio, found the back of the net. But the VAR found that was offsides on the play. The goal was disallowed, and it stayed 0-0. Mexico seemed to be a little scared by that attempt, and they cranked their pressure up. And then in the 69th minute, Gerardo Arteaga would unleash a rocket from outside the box that he wanted to rip through the net, putting Mexico up 1-0, and that's how the game would end. A big win for Mexico to start the tournament, but tough loss losing Alvarez just 30 minutes in. It said that Almeria defender Cesar Montes will now take over the captain's armband for Mexico. Going to Group C, the United States took on Bolivia, and what a start for the host nation. The U.S. won an early corner kick, which they took quickly, and AC Milan's Christian Pulisic curled a jam into the top corner. Putting the Americans up 1-0 under 150 seconds into the match. The crowd went nuts. The Americans kept up the pressure, and just before halftime, Pulisic would go on a long run where he'd find Monaco striker Balogun, and the big striker would find the corner of the net, doubling the Americans' lead going into halftime, where we'd see no goals in the second half, and Bolivia struggled to generate any chances, only had 39% of the ball, and the Americans picked up the 2-0 win. The other Group C match featured Uruguay and Panama. Uruguay started an attack mode, and it paid off in the 16th minute. Araujo curled a beauty into the top corner, giving Uruguay the 1-0 lead. The game stayed that way for a while until Uruguay would double their lead in the 85th minute. From a counterattack, a cross into the box was headed down to Liverpool's Darwin Nunez, who found the back of the net, putting Uruguay up 2-0. And then not even 6 minutes later, from a dangerous free kick, Uruguay's Matias Vino would head the ball into the back of the net, putting Uruguay up 3-0 after 91 minutes. The game was wrapped up, but you got to give it to Panama. They didn't quit, and they ruined Sergio Roche's clean sheet when Murillo would make a little move and smash his ball into the top corner with basically the last kick of the game. But like I said, Uruguay won 3-1, but they didn't look happy to give up that last second goal and ruin the clean sheet. Wrapping up the opening games, we go to Group D, where Colombia took on Paraguay. This game opened up with a few chances, and then the 32nd minute, we get a goal. Colombia's James Rodriguez sent a lovely cross into the box, where it was met by Daniel Munoz, and his header put Colombia up 1-0. Not even 10 minutes later, Colombia had a free kick in a dangerous spot, where again, James Rodriguez would cross into the box, where another Colombian head met the ball. This time, Jefferson Lema's header would find the back of the net, doubling Colombia's lead. In the second half, Paraguay would try to get back into it. In the 69th minute, a Ramon Sosa cross was met by Enciso, whose shot found the back of the net, making it 2-1 after 69 minutes. Colombia looked to answer, and it looked like they were awarded a late penalty when Yerry Mina was taken down in the box, but VAR said no penalty. Regardless, Colombia won 2-1 over Paraguay. And with only 4 groups in Copa America, we already got to the second matches of Group A, and what a second match for Canada. They faced off with Peru. It was an early starting time, so I had to race home from work to catch the second half. And when I caught up on the first half, wow, I mentioned him earlier, but Canadian keeper Maxime Crepeau, man, he made some big saves against Peru here. Peru was trying their best, but he kept them from finding the back of the net. And Peru did look to score. They were happy, but it was blatantly offsides and taken away. And Peru was lucky not to go a man down after Lopez headbutt Alistair Johnson. Didn't even generate a card. In the Euros, that would probably be a red card. But just before the halftime whistle, a scary scene involving one of the linesmen. He was in the sun the whole first half, and just before the break, he collapsed. Another big save by Crepeau as he spotted the linesman down and waved to the officials and tried to get medical attention there. He was stretchered off, and he appeared to be okay. In the second half, Peru would get an actual red card. Miguel Araujo would aggressively foul Canada's Schaffelberg. It looked like Schaffelberg took quite the knock, and the replay made it look worse and worse. It was initially called a yellow, but VAR intervened and upgraded it to a red. It was quite excessive. Luckily, Schaffelberg was okay, and Araujo was dismissed from the match. This really put some pep into the Canada's step, and they had some great chances, which quite frankly, they missed pretty bad. They should have got a goal off some of these misses, and it was getting nervy as you wondered if they'd rue those chances. Then after a fantastic counterattack, Kyle Larin spotted Schaffelberg, where he'd spot Leo's Jonathan David, who had lots to do yet, but he'd put the ball off the inside of the post into the back of the net. An amazing finish by one of the Liga's best strikers. His 50th cap for Team Canada, and it was Canada's first ever goal in the Copa America. It was a nervy finish where, you guessed it, Crepeau made more amazing saves, but Peru could just not beat the Quebec native. Canada would hold on to beat Peru 1-0. What a win for Canada's men's footy. First ever Copa America win. First win over a South American team in 24 years. And I know he didn't get on the score sheet, and he had a few bad passes, but Canada's captain, Alphonso Davies, he made big plays when Canada needed him, showing off the stamina late in the game, going on little bursts to try to kill time. This win also puts Canada in position to get out of the knockout stages. I don't want to get ahead of myself here, but gotta enjoy Jesse Marsh's first win with Team Canada. I'm not gonna lie, when David's shot went in, I went a little wild. I loved it. The other Group A was a doozy matchup with 2 favorites to make it out of the group, Argentina and Chile. Argentina dominated possession, always looked more likely to score, and they forced Chilean keeper Claudio Bravo into making some big saves. The 41-year-old was making huge saves all over, inspiring Chile to go on some chances of their own, forcing Argentina's Emi Martinez into some big saves. The goalies played fantastic, but would finally get a goal in the 88th minute off an Argentina corner kick. The ball would pinball before coming to Arturo Martinez, who, just like in the first match, scored in the 88th minute. Something with that number, I guess, putting Argentina up 1-0, and they'd secure the victory, punching their ticket to the knockout stages with 1 game left to play. The remaining groups will play their second matches throughout the week. Then the final group matches begin on the weekend, and all eyes, especially these eyes, will be on Canada versus Chile on Sunday, June 29th. Canada can beat Chile. They'd advance to the knockout stages. If they draw, they need Argentina not to lose the Peru to help them advance. However, if they lose the Chile, they're done. So bit of pressure on that game. Can't wait to cheer Canada up in that one. Major League Baseball, before I jump to any of the big games in baseball or even recap the Blue Jays, I have to talk about the loss of one of the biggest names in baseball. Willie Mays, the baseball icon, passed away at 93 years old last week. I, of course, shouted him out back in episode 24 in the early days of Sports and Shorts of Sorts during our Jersey shoutouts when I didn't do as many shoutouts and didn't give them as much time. And Willie Mays deserved all that time and more. He played before my time, but with video and the numbers, you can see how great he was. The big giveaway of his greatness is just how everyone speaks about Willie Mays, the joy, the sheer excitement people got from watching Mays or even getting lucky enough to meet him. He really had an impact on the world. One of the good things that comes out of this terrible loss has been the videos and tributes people have shown. One that I've really loved watching is the exchange between Dodgers legendary broadcaster Vin Scully and Willie Mays, the two Goliaths who had met for the first time years ago. Scully said Mays was his favorite player. He was just wearing the wrong uniform. A player who impacted the game and really impacted the world, Willie Mays. May the Say Hey Kid rest in peace. And the passing of Willie Mays kind of transitions us into the next baseball story. Mays was expected to attend the game between the St. Louis Cardinals and San Francisco Giants at the historic Rickwood Field in Birmingham, Alabama. This was the same field that Mays had played for the Birmingham Black Barons, looking to become a professional baseball player many years ago. The atmosphere seemed to be pretty jolly as Major League Baseball finally honored the Negro Leagues. This all followed the integration of stats from the both leagues. And the panel on Fox were interviewing greats, getting good stories, but I don't think anyone on the Fox production team expected the kind of response they got from Hall of Famer Reggie Jackson. When asked about his time in Alabama, Jackson did not hold back. He gave the truth on what he and other people of color had to go through then. When he asked about what it was like to play in Alabama in 1967, Jackson bluntly said, "I wouldn't wish it on anyone." He spoke of how he was looked at as less than a human, also saying, "I walked in the restaurants and they would point at me and say the N-word can't eat here." He spoke of the people in his corner, like his manager, Johnny McNamara, saying that if Reggie couldn't eat a place, no one would eat. If Reggie couldn't stay in a hotel, they'd drive to the next hotel and find a place where he could stay. Reggie Jackson also said if it wasn't for Rolly Fingers, Johnny McNamara, Dave Duncan, Joe and Sharon Rudy, I slept on their couch 3-4 nights a week for about a month and a half. Finally, they were threatened they would burn our apartment complex down unless I got out. That's crazy. He spoke about the connections with the KKK in the area and how the Klan bombed the 16th Street Baptist Church, killing 4 girls, Addie Mae Collins, Cynthia Wesley, Carol Robertson, Carol Denise McNair. Reggie Jackson also said if it wasn't for his white friends, he would never have made it, saying in 67 he was a young man who was not ready to turn the other cheek, saying he was too physically violent. I was ready to physically fight somebody. I would have got killed here because I would have beat someone's ass, and you would have saw me hanging from an oak tree somewhere. Like, that's intense. This is some real truths that need to be heard. If you haven't watched the clip, please do. This is a man who lives through some atrocities, and these stories cannot be buried. I know there's certain states trying to ban history because of the gruesomeness of it, but these real truths cannot be forgotten. They need to be remembered for what happened and what these people went through. This man went through it. He became a Hall of Famer, and he damn well gets to talk about it. I talk about Reggie Jackson in episode 44, Jersey Shutouts, and I have even more love for the guy. Now, I talked about some monumental moments in the baseball world. Let's get to some of the games. The Toronto Blue Jays, they released struggling Daniel Vogelbach. The move did not work out for the Jays. He did not fit in very well. And then another move that didn't sound too well. Blue Jays infielder Orelvis Martinez, he was suspended 80 games for violating the MLB's performance-enhancing drug policy. He just made his MLB debut. He's just looking good, and he just got this big suspension. He tested positive for clomiphene, which is on the banned substance list, and it said he was taking the medicine to try and get a family started with his girlfriend. In a statement directly from him via Jeff Passan, he said, "We wanted to keep this matter private, even within our family, and I trusted the doctor who assured us this treatment did not include any performance-enhancing drugs. Therefore, I made the mistake of not disclosing this to my team or the MLBPA. With that said, I take full responsibility for my negligence and accepted my suspension." So another tough blow and a tough season for the Blue Jays. So going to actually what the Blue Jays have done on the field, it's not very good either. At the end of last podcast episode, the Jays were hosting the Red Sox, and the Jays would wind up getting swept by the Sox. So the Jays put up 3 runs each game, but lost each game. The Jays just went on the road to take on the Cleveland Guardians, where again, the Jays were swept. The trip to Cleveland did not go well. They continued their road trip into Boston to take on the Red Sox again, where the series opened with the Jays taking a 6-2 lead in the bottom of the 8th and proceeding to lose 7-6, ruining a great start by Chris Bassett. The second game of the series, the Jays did the unthinkable. They actually won again. Sparked by a 7-run third inning, the Jays went on to beat the Red Sox 9-4, ending a 7-game losing streak. The Jays wrap their series up in Boston today. Then the Blue Jays head to the Bronx, where they'll take on the New York Yankees in a 4-game series. If the Jays could somehow split that, or hell, even win the series, they could be a real turning point for them. But I know that's asking a lot right now. Looking at the AL East, the Blue Jays losing streak, combined with some hot play from the Tampa Bay Rays, have the Toronto Blue Jays sitting in the basement of the division again. 3.5 games behind the Rays, who are back at 500. The Red Sox sit 3 games above the Rays and have been playing well lately. The Orioles have faltered a bit. They find themselves 2 games back of the division-leading Yankees, and the Orioles were swept by the Astros and are on the verge of potentially getting swept again. Uncharted waters for this team over the past few seasons, who hadn't got swept in years until this season. But the Yankees have struggled a bit as well, and they still do have the most wins in the American League. And Aaron Judge has been doing all he can to try and get an AL MVP. He's leading the AL and MLB in home runs with 25, and he also leads the American League and Major Leagues with 75 RBIs. Going to the AL Central, where I mentioned those Cleveland Guardians are leading the division, they're playing lights out. They swept the Jays at home, and they're on the verge of sweeping the Baltimore Orioles here. Cleveland team's looking really good. They have a 9-game lead over the second-place Minnesota Twins, who are in a tight race with the Kansas City Royals. The Tigers have dropped back a bit, 5 games back of the Royals there, while the Chicago White Sox continue to struggle, sitting last in the AL Central with only 21 wins on the season, the lowest in the major leagues thus far. Going to the American League West, we still only have 1 team above 500, the division-leading Seattle Mariners. They only have a 4.5-game lead over the second-place Houston Astros, who have been on a tear lately, winning 8 of their last 10, including that big sweep over the Orioles I mentioned earlier. Just 1 game under 500 now, and they're looking to make up for their early season struggles. The Rangers are just a few games back of the Astros, but then there's a big drop-off in the division. The Los Angeles Angels and Oakland Athletics are stinking it up in California. And more bad news for the Angels as pitcher Patrick Sandoval needs Tommy John surgery on his torn UCL, which will keep the left-handed pitcher out until 2026. One positive for the Angels, they managed to get 1 win over the Dodgers in a 2-game stand. And speaking of those Dodgers, we'll head to the National League and start in the NL West, where former Angel Shohei Ohtani has been killing it for the division-leading Dodgers. Hit home runs in back-to-back games against his former club, reminding the fans of what they used to have. But like I said, Ohtani's been on a tear. He's currently on a franchise record-tying 9-game RBI streak. He's leading the NL in home runs with 24. He's in top 3 in hits and RBIs. He's just been killing it. The Dodgers have an 8.5-game advantage over the second-place San Diego Padres, who have been playing pretty well, find themselves 2 games over 500. The Diamondbacks have also been playing pretty decent, find themselves just 1 game under 500. The Giants have had a rough go with having to deal with the St. Louis Cardinals, but seem to be bouncing back, taking on the Cubs, where they are treading water in this tough division. The Rockies still sit in the basement in the NL West, but they were part of some MLB history against the Nationals. In the bottom of the 9th, game tied, bases loaded, full count, Washington Nationals closer Kyle Finnegan was called for a pitch clock violation. His league-leading 9th. The call gave Colorado the first ever walk-off pitch clock call. First time it has happened since being instituted before the 2023 season. I wonder when we'll see that again. A very unique win for a Colorado team that doesn't have a ton of them this season. We'll go to the NL Central. The Milwaukee Brewers still leading the division. They have a 5.5-game lead over the second-place St. Louis Cardinals, who look like a totally different team than the ones we saw at the beginning of the season. The Pirates have fallen to 3 games under 500 in the division, or only 3 games back of the Cardinals. And anytime you get to watch rookie Paul Skeens out there, it's something else. Must-see TV. You're going to see strikeouts, and you're going to see pitches at high velocity. I love it. The Cincinnati Reds and Cubs have been struggling as they've dropped to the basement division. The NL Central is so tight, a winning streak could really get you going up in this division. And we'll wrap up the MLB recap by going to the National League East. The Phillies are still leading the division. They got their 52 wins, have them tied with the Yankees for the most in Major League Baseball. And we saw a rare moment in their game against the Tigers. They pulled pulled off a rare 1-3-5 triple play. The first triple play of the season and the first time a 1-3-5 has been done since 1929. The Braves have been playing some good baseball lately, winning 7 of their last 10, and despite that, they're still 7.5 behind the division-leading Phillies. And we'll speak of hot teams. The New York Mets have been playing some great baseball. Won 2 out of 3 against the Cubs and beat the Yankees in the first of their 2-game stand. They'll have their second game with the Yankees today. The Mets then take on the Astros in a battle of 2 hot teams. That one should be fun. But some troubling news for the Mets as well. During their 5-2 win over the Cubs, closer Edwin Diaz was ejected prior to even entering the game for having a banned substance on his hand. The ejection also warranted a 10-game suspension, which Diaz is now serving. The Washington Nationals are just 1 game back of the streaking Mets. They've played some up-and-down ball, but will be remembered as the first team to lose on a pitch clock violation. As I just mentioned, Nationals closer Kyle Finnegan had his 9th pitch clock violation, which led to the loss, but he also has the second most saves right now in the National League, so he is doing pretty well. But sitting in the basement of that division is Miami Marlins with their 28 wins, the 3rd lowest in the majors currently. Quick mention of Formula One here. For the past weekend, the Spanish Grand Prix went down. An exciting race where a few pit stops at key moments really impacted the race. Max Verstappen of Red Bull would win his 7th race of the year, picking up back-to-back wins after winning the Canadian Grand Prix prior. McLaren's Lando Norris kept up his great racing form, finishing 2nd. And late in the race, Mercedes' Lewis Hamilton passed teammate George Russell to put him in the 3rd and secure his first podium of the season. Amazing it took 10 rounds before Lewis would get his first podium. Not the ideal final season at Mercedes for Lewis thus far. I mentioned Russell finishing 4th. Behind him was the 2 Ferraris, Charles Leclerc in 5th, Spaniard Carlos Sainz 6th on his home circuit, McLaren's Oscar Piastri in 7th, while Red Bull Sergio Perez in 8th. Christian Horner can feel happy about Checo's recent results after signing that contract extension. His complacency might have Red Bull wanting to rip up that new contract. Pierre Gasly and Esteban Ocon finished 9th and 10th to get some points for Team Alpine. Not a long wait for the next race. The Austrian Grand Prix will be going on this Sunday at the Red Bull Ring. Even more pressure on Red Bull Sergio Perez to perform at the home track. I'm sure Max Verstappen isn't really bothered. Over the weekend, Scotty Scheffler needed a playoff to beat South Korean golfer Tom Kim in the TPC River Highlands. The number 1 ranked golfer picked up his 6th PGA Tour win in the season, and there was a protest on the 18th hole of the tournament with people speaking out against oil. I feel the whole genocide being done in Palestine should probably be more things that they should be protesting. I mean, these are the big events to talk about that. I have friends here in Saskatoon that are doing their talk speaking on the genocide going on. It's unbelievable how long it's been going on. I mentioned it on podcasts a while ago and asking for a ceasefire, and we're this far into it, and the war seems to be expanding in Lebanon now. So can we just stop trying to wipe out an entire group of people? That's all I'll say on that again. Another big story in golf, Tiger Woods was granted lifetime entry to PGA Tour future significant events. Lifetime exemption gives him, like I said, exemption to go into these events. I mean, any tournament of Tiger Woods is usually a bigger tournament. Some boxing news, Ryan Garcia is suspended 1 year by the New York State Athletic Commission. His decision victory over Devin Haney has also been overturned and a no contest. Following positive tests of the PED Austrian, Garcia has also forfeited $1.1 million. The Golden Boy was fined $10,000 by the commission. Devin Haney responded via Twitter or X saying, "Thank you to the commission for doing the right thing. I don't understand how Golden Boy is getting any of this money as they didn't take the punches. They haven't even spoke of the PED situation." Well, Ryan Garcia went to X and said they took my victory away. So one boxer happy to get his undefeated record back while the other is still pleading innocence. That's boxing, baby. And also boxing, the belt collector, Alexander Usyk, announced that he is vacating his IBF heavyweight world title so that Anthony Joshua and Daniel Dubois can fight for it on September 21st. Usyk will no longer hold the undisputed heavyweight champion moniker, as he will be 1 belt less, but he will be fighting Tyson Fury in December, and he still possesses the WBC, WBA, and WBO belts. It's hard to say O and belt right after for some reason for me. But anyway, the guy's got a lot of belts. The Ukrainian knows how to fight. Quick recap of the CFL Week 3. It was a beatdown to start the week. Montreal Alouettes hosted the Red Blacks and beat on them. Win 47-21. Cody Fajardo was lights out, 28 for 35, 393 passing yards, 3 touchdowns. Oh, and he ran one in as well. BC Lions went on the road to take on the Blue Bombers. It was a close game throughout. Adams was leading the Lions on a late drive to where they'd knock in a field goal to go up 26-24. The Bombers looked like they were going to answer, but Nip Dembski dropped a wide open pass that could have led to points. That play was costly as the Lions got the ball back and ran out the time. Picking up the big win as the Blue Bombers dropped to 0-3 on the season. Toronto Argonauts hosted the Edmonton Elks in a high-scoring affair. This was a shootout that could have went either way, and with the game tied at 36 late, you didn't know where it would go. Argos ended up making a late drive, setting up a game-winning field goal by Haralu, who knocked a 37-yarder through to secure the 39-36 win. Argos stay unbeaten on the year 2-0, while the Elks remain winless at 0-3. You can't fault quarterback McLeod Bethel Thompson, who went 28 for 38, 342 yards, and 4 touchdowns, but another tough loss for the Elks. And the week wrapped up with the Saskatchewan Roughriders hosting the Hamilton Tiger Cats in the Riders' home opener. The Riders came out on fire, going up 17-0 in the first quarter, but they get a little bit of a scare when quarterback Trevor Harris had to leave the game with a knee injury. It was said he was trying to come back in the game, but the coaching staff told him no. Shea Patterson came in and helped the Riders get to the finish line with a victory. Defense looked great again for the Riders, picking Bo Levi Mitchell off 3 times. The Riders would hold on to beat Hamilton 36-20, keeping the Riders unbeaten at 3-0 to start the season, and they do have a bye week in week 4, which should help Trevor Harris heal up and get back into the game. So that was a wild week of sports, which brings us to the short. Today, I will be helping my mom clear the last bit of her house in Warman. She's downsizing, and that's been tough since my dad passed. Miss that guy every day. That house has tons of memories for me as we moved there in 1999. That's way down yonder. That was on the eve of a new millennium, and we've had great Christmases there, great family moments, some wild moments, some moments of getting baked in the bedroom, or as it was called, the dope den, where once my niece tried to come in, and it was just hotboxed in there. I'm like, hey, get out of here. She's like, why is it so foggy? Got to lock that door, I guess. Memories of shooting hoops outside, including playing 21 with my dad the morning of my high school graduation. It was just a cool moment, just talking about life and stuff. There's a 1,000-square-foot shop in the backyard. Played hockey in there when we first moved there. I moved in there briefly, talked about that a bit on episode 46 of this podcast. Had host parties there, sneaking people in through the back window. Monumental moments like the celebration where my mom became a Canadian citizen. It was awesome. Or big birthdays where everyone would come out. My high school party where Mamie and an axe got involved. I talked about that in episode 30 if you want to hear about that story. It was a house with so many memories. You don't even realize it till you're emptying it. Mind-boggling, that a structure can have this much impact into your life. It's a place where I saw my dad fight the toughest battle of his life. I talked about his last day and one of the hardest days of my life on episode 50, and I still can't believe I got through that without crying. The house was a very, very, very nice house, and it served well. And although it's bittersweet leaving behind, just like books, you got to move on to the next chapter. Thanks for tuning in. My WNBA recap will be recorded tonight, so expect to see that popping up tomorrow, where we talk about the finals that wrapped up, talk about big trades already, talk about the NBA draft picks, and of course the WNBA Commissioner's Cup wrapped up. Lots to look forward to. Thanks again for tuning in. Episode 67 in the books. Rent City out.